Did you know that this is the most violent political era in the United States since the 1970s? The surge in political violence in America. It's on the rise. Since January the 6th, we've had over 300 documented incidents of political violence. And these, threats aren't just abstract anymore. They're direct, they're personal, and they're aimed at your neighbors, officials, community officials, and communities themselves. And the question, why is this happening? And what does it lead to, right? So let's start with the facts. Political violence, obviously, is not new in America. We've seen it before. Go back to the Civil War, the 60s, the assassination of Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy. Then you had the Vietnam War protests. But for decades, political violence in the United States has been on the decline. Well, that's no longer the case. The January 6th attack wasn't, just an isolated event. It was more like a flashpoint. It lit the fuse. And since then, politically motivated violence has become disturbingly more common. And it's important that we understand that political violence doesn't always mean large mobs of people storming government buildings. These days, political violence takes many shapes and forms. It can be harassment, death threats against school board members, election workers, judges, politicians, social media influencers, armed demonstrations at state capitals, attacks on FBI offices, power grids, elected officials' homes, and perhaps the most dangerous is the normalization of very violent rhetoric where political leaders and media figures just talk casually about who the enemies are and who the traitors are. What makes this different from the past is the targeting. It's not just institutions, it's specific individuals. Just people, trying to do their jobs. So, why are we seeing this now? Obviously, there's several drivers. Polarization, division. Americans are more divided than any time in modern history. And politics has become so tribal. I've talked about that a lot in recent videos, where disagreement feels more like a betrayal. And then you have misinformation and disinformation, which I've talked about at length. Social media spreads conspiracy theories faster than facts. I've talked about that at length. When people believe that the system is rigged or illegitimate, then in many cases, violence can feel like the only option. And then, now we have leaders who normalize it. We have political figures who use violent language, who excuse violent behavior. And when you do that, it gives permission for others to act because words do matter. And they set a tone for the country that has dangerous consequences. The consequences of rising political violence are devastating. Imagine being an election worker, volunteering, and being in fear for your safety. Much fewer people want to volunteer and do that anymore. They fewer people want to protect that system anymore out of fear. It silences people, voices, teachers, judges, journalists. People are being intimidated into silence, and it threatens the stability of our country. When violence becomes normal, people no longer have any faith in the rule of law, and they start taking matters into their own hands. And history shows us where this can go. We've seen the fall of democracies in Europe to violent authoritarian movements around the world. Violence doesn't stay contained. It's contagious. It spreads. And the hard truth is there's no quick fix. It's just not a thing. But there is a place to start, right? It has to start at the top. Leaders have to stop using violent rhetoric and language for political gain. Social media apps and companies need to take responsibility for things that are being said on their platforms, and especially for the spread of disinformation. Local towns and communities must find ways to talk to each other across political divides, even when it's uncomfortable. That's just part of the job. I think people just don't want to be uncomfortable anymore. But as people and as citizens, we must make a commitment to rejecting it, to rejecting violence, whether it comes from the left or the right or anywhere in between. It doesn't matter. Democracy is built on debate, compromise, not intimidation, not bloodshed. So, we currently are sort of at a crossroads. Political violence has returned, and whether it continues to rise, whether it escalates, or whether it recedes depends on all of us. We can either let the anger and the lies and the division pull us further apart, or we can see and recognize the warning signs for what they are and maybe choose a different path. Ultimately, the choice is ours. If we continue to allow this to happen, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Please like and share. I really appreciate all my new followers. Hope you guys had a great Labor Day weekend. Thank you.